Okay, you guys smile.
Want to leave eating.
Hi, Renee.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good.
I think that there's enough of us here, the important ones. All us freshmen are here, so
Okay.
former freshmen,
Okay.
go ahead, get started.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see some faces. I'm going to introduce the staff that are present right now in the conference room with me. We have Audra Homegun. She's our personnel specialist, employee benefits assistant. Evelyn Charlo, she's the personnel specialist for employee benefits. Shelley Grenier and Corey Claremont and Chanel Tigan are all personnel management specialists. And I just wanted to start out by saying that our funding source is part of the indirect cost pool. Our present budget for fiscal year 22 is $639,975. Our mission statement is to administer personnel policies for the tribal government, to provide personnel management functions for the tribal government, and to provide services to the public. We split up right now all the departments between our 4 specialists. Melanie Petalou is not present today. She's also the lead personnel management specialist. We split up our departments by splitting up the departments. Each personnel specialist does the job vacancy announcements, the performance evaluations, all the benchmark requests, screening of applications, and attending interviews for their departments. The major functions of the personnel department are to maintain the official personnel files, ensuring that all official personnel files contain accurate information regarding employment status, rate of pay, performance evaluation, and employee benefit information for active and inactive employees. We process biweekly payroll changes and payroll deductions in conjunction with the accounting department on a biweekly basis. We process personnel action forms for each unit of the tribal organization, and we assist departments in processing of personnel action forms for their departments. Our recruitment process, when we advertise vacancies, all positions, the news, and other publications at the request of the department for a period of 2 weeks. Positions are screened according to qualifications set by the departments within 10 days of the closing date. We coordinate interview times with department and attend the interviews to inform applicants of pre-hire drug testing and benefit package, and to ensure that all applicants are asked the same questions. And we inform all applicants of the outcome of the recruitment process. For employee benefits, we conduct orientation for new employees, explaining the benefits package, the health insurance, the life insurance, the retirement program, leave accrual, employee assistance program, flexible spending plan, long-term disability, safety policies, workers' compensation coverage, and conflict of interest statements for employees. We process this paperwork for new employees for enrollment in health, life, and retirement programs. And we process changes for current employees and notify all employees of any changes in premiums and/or coverage. And we also recommend changes to current policies and present information to tribal council for approval. The benchmarking process through pay scale, we establish a minimum, midpoint, and maximum rates of pay for positions that are benchmarked. Effective October 1st, 2021, all positions were moved to the market rate for their position. The tribal pay plan was discontinued at that time. We now have merit increases back in force. Those are based on the employee's performance evaluation score. You're eligible for up to an 8% increase if your performance is outstanding on your evaluation, and eligible for a 5% increase if your performance is above standard. We also monitor temporary employment agreements. We assign numbers to all of those contracts that we receive. In employee relations, we explain the grievance procedure to employees and ensure they receive the proper paperwork.
Oh, you sounded so good, Renee, too. You're on a roll, man. You're rolling.
Thought.
Welcome to my world. My computer doesn't work up here. So.
Well, I could hear you when you said hello.
Yeah, you made it right to the benchmarking process.
Oh, the benchmarking process. Okay, so I don't have to pick up from the beginning.
No,
Good.
it's good to repeat the benchmark because everybody's confused about that anyway.
Okay. Okay, the benchmarking process through pay scale. We've established minimum, midpoint, and maximum rates for positions that are benchmarked. Effective October 1st, all positions were moved to the market rate of the position. So if you weren't at the minimum rate of pay, you had to be increased to at least the minimum. And at that time, we discontinued the tribal pay plan. Merit increases now are back in force. They're based on the employee's performance evaluation score. You're eligible for an 8% increase if your performance is outstanding, and you're eligible for a 5% increase if your performance is above standard. We also monitor temporary employment agreement and employment agreements. We receive all the agreements and assign a number to each one that we receive. And in employee relations, we explain grievance procedure to employees and ensure they receive the proper paperwork. We meet with employees at their request to discuss various issues and attempt to resolve those issues with the immediate supervisor and or department head. We circulate information to employees from the Employee Assistance Program, newsletters with specific topics, and inform employees of counseling services that are available through the Employee Assistance Program. Right now, you can currently receive 4 free sessions of counseling for any issue that you're going through. All you have to do is contact that Employee Assistance Program, and it's free of charge to the employee. We also schedule training with employees with the Employee Assistance Program on a quarterly basis on specific topics. The Employee Assistance Program does have a list of trainings that they provide, but we utilize most of those to provide drug and alcohol training to supervisors and employees that is required in the drug and alcohol policy. Did I cover that okay? Okay. The grievance policy in ordinance 69D, employees who are covered by a contract unless the contract allows, emergency hires or employees who are serving a new hire or reassignment probationary period shall not be eligible to file and prosecute a grievance. An employee pursuing a grievance shall have the right to be assisted or represented by any other person of the employee's choosing at any step in the grievance process, as long as there's not a conflict of interest. Tribal council, employees of the personnel department, and officers of tribal court who are employed by the tribes may not represent an employee during the grievance process. Costs of such assistance and representation shall be paid by the grieving employee. The record of a grievance proceeding initiated by an employee shall not be made part of the employee's official personnel file, but shall be kept in a grievance file unique to that employee. The grievance file shall contain all findings from all parties, and a complete copy shall be conveyed to the hearings officer if one is appointed. The grievance process currently starts by the employee filing a grievance procedure form with the lead personnel specialist, who is Melanie Petalou, within 4 working days after the occurrence of the event. Melanie looks at it to see if it's a grievable issue, and she'll issue a letter to the employee. To date, since we've changed the ordinance, we haven't had any proceed up to the hearings officer. We've had some that employees have not agreed with Melanie's decision and have filed suit in tribal court. I'm not going to read the whole grievance procedure because it's but I did want to point out the current grievance procedure. Chapter 1, Part 10, Part C states, an employee who presents a grievance subject to this ordinance to the tribal council shall be deemed to have waived his or her right to seek any form of relief from the tribal government. We also administer the drug and alcohol policy. We schedule employees for pre-hire testing at St. Luke's Hospital for all new employees. We maintain a list of safety sensitive positions and contract employees for random testing upon notification from St. Luke's Hospital. And we maintain a separate file of all drug tests that are performed. When employees violate the drug and alcohol policy, test positive, their first violation, they are removed from duty and referred to our employee assistance program for assessment. The employee has to provide a negative result to return to work and must comply with the follow-up treatment recommended by the substance abuse counselor that they're referred to. On the second violation, they are removed from duty for a period of 2 weeks, and that's unpaid. And they have to provide the negative result before they return to duty. And they also have to meet with the employee assistance program substance abuse counselor to follow a treatment that's recommended by them. And the third violation, employment is terminated. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Renee, about approximately how many randoms do we do per month? Just an estimate.
We haven't gotten back to the point with a lab where we're doing regular randoms, but when we were doing probably 10 to 15 a month
So,
would be my estimate.
so you're saying right now we do not do any randoms?
No, since COVID happened, everything is slowly coming back. So Mel, I actually talked to Mel the other day and she was going to check with the lab to see when we can get started on the random testing again.
Okay. So on the first issue that you mentioned in regards to an employee, visiting with tribal council or advising tribal council about their potential grievance, you're saying then they disqualify themselves from any assistance from the tribe? What kind of assistance would that be? Just curiosity, because I don't know, I've heard this before, but I just never knew exactly what.
Yeah,
They
they
were
wouldn't
entitled
get to
to.
proceed by actually filing a grievance and following that grievance through Melanie first, and then the hearings officer. If it eventually came to the hearings officer, they just waived their right to the filing the grievance period.
They broke the chain, the process chain.
Yeah. Mhm.
Wait, Big has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. Renee, on our people that has the CDLs, they're not getting their random drug tests like they used to. Is that what you're saying?
Right. We got to get back into the random testing. Mel was going to get in touch, like I said, with the lab to see when we can do our random testing again, because we should be testing any safety sensitive position, which includes the CDL drivers.
Is that putting the tribe at risk by not doing that?
Mhm.
It is, I was just wondering,
Yeah,
because,
we should.
we got a lot of staff that have CDLs,
Mhm.
especially right now with firefighters driving and whatnot, with all the equipment that's going on out there, and they're not tested. And, for a fact that probably some of them are doing something, now with the sanctioning of our marijuana, being legal now. So, but it just makes a person wonder, what's all going on out there with these people, because I know they work hard. They really do, when they come off those fires and stuff,
Mhm.
they want to go have a beer or have whatever they want to do, what afterwards. But, I know when we was out there at Job Corps, we was always getting our random drug test, for the ones that all had CDLs out there, so I was just wondering if that was.
Yeah, we're still doing all the pre-hire testing. So when a new employee comes to work, we do that testing. And all positions in the tribe too are subject to reasonable suspicion testing. So if you feel, you as a supervisor feel your employee maybe is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, you can get them tested under reasonable suspicion testing also.
To follow up on that, what you just stated though, don't you have to have another supervisor there before you're able to do that?
Yep, you and another supervisor, yes.
So question, is there any training for that?
That's what we use the training through the employee assistance program for, how to recognize signs and symptoms of alcohol or drug use.
Is that like a,
We're supposed to do it once a year. And we're
Once a year.
slowly getting back on track with
Okay.
everything after COVID.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the guy from Missoula coming up to NRD
Yeah.
once. Yeah.
John Parsons?
Yes.
Mhm. Yep.
So to get back to the liability issue, so there's not a constraint to the lab then if we're doing new hire drug testing. So to me, I would think that the paramount thing is actually the random test. for those drug sensitive or, those safety
Safety
sensitive ones versus this, hey, we're just gonna hire you for the tribes, do this pre-hire drug test. So if the lab is functioning, I would reverse that and go after the random. That would just be me. I think brings up a very important problem here. So I mean, pre-hire drug test means absolutely nothing to me when somebody can plan for that. Random is where it's at as far as safety positions, and so I would hope that we would spend more time. Do you know how much we spend on the drug tests for pre-hire?
The billing can go up to 2,500 a month. And that's mainly pre-hires presently. It goes a little bit higher when we do randoms.
I would assume, Lisa, it's required for both if it's in the ordinance.
It is, it's required for both.
Right.
But what I'm trying to say is we could even ask them to do randoms and they might say, well, we can only do 10 randoms. And I mean,
No,
how
I'm
do
just
you
telling,
want,
I'm just saying that for me on a liability case, if you're not doing randoms on safety sensitive positions, we are very much at fault. And then that's more important for me to conduct that than it is the pre-hire. Because we're still gonna catch them if they're doing something wrong on randoms. And what I'd like to do is actually increase the frequency of randoms in the safety sensitive positions.
we might have to look at a different institution if they're not able to meet the need,
Well, I would supplant one for the other.
right?
So there's a large capacity for you're doing right now for pre-hire. I would switch that and do that for randoms to get the randoms going immediately. If at all possible. I think that's what Bing's bringing up. So. Good point, yeah. So
Yeah,
we could change the ordinance.
We
but-
change the drug and alcohol. If council wanted to, they could change the drug and alcohol policy to where we just do random testing.
That would be the most effective meaning or outcome for our funding and staying compliant with our, not trying to be negligent. You know. Sammy Safety says safety first.
So basically do random for all.
Pardon?
So basically you're saying do random for all to make sure we're covering all the bases?
Oh, absolutely. If it's a
Okay.
safety, if it's a, yeah, I mean, we're not saying that bus driver, this is just no, it has to happen. It has to be random, or police officers, it has to be a random, if not required monthly. Even that would be. Not all employees, just the safety sensitive positions. I would actually do away with them for other people. Because what we have is that suspicion. Suspicion is very important. And so, it could be that, John has I'm gonna pick on you guys in the back because you're back there. We don't have to, we don't need to require test Dan, but the random would be the one, or the suspicion would come forward. That's when we want to have that tool in our tool bag. That covers all employees. So if there's some drug activity or alcohol activity on the job or affecting their workplace, then you can do the test under the suspicion test with another supervisor. If I'm making sense or not.
I could certainly bring in the drug and alcohol policy and we could relook at that.
Well, we're removing marijuana because it's a legal drug. I think. Is that correct, Lisa?
Based on federal funding, I don't know that you could do that across the board. If the federal government requires that you be drug-free, we can't go against that for our funding.
You can identify the funding source that requires that, then that would be a condition of that, but for hard tribal dollars, I don't see where that's an effective use of our funding.
No, I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just saying that's a consideration. We would have to make sure that anyone federally funded would fall under
Yeah,
that.
well, Mike's worked up some language for us, Mike Wheeler. Go ahead, Rick.
Hard to grasp the answer, but legal.
So I can bring the policy in for further
Oh,
discussion. then.
Yeah.
The next thing I wanted to refer to is disciplinary actions. There are no stages of disciplinary action and it's not progressive per the ordinance. The types of disciplinary action we presently have are an oral warning, no written records entered into the employee's personnel file. We have a corrective interview where the employee conducts the interview, or the employer conducts the interview with the employee to make them aware of his or her acts giving rise to disciplinary action. The employer invoking disciplinary action shall record the interview and enter any corrective steps required by the employee in the employee's personnel file. We also have the fourth type of disciplinary action is suspension. An employee can be suspended without pay for up to 5 working days or longer if the suspension involves issues of public health or safety. And the last type of disciplinary action we have is termination. When circumstances so warrant, an employee can be terminated. The personnel department also oversees the background check policy, personal reference checks. Employees that have regular care or control of children and or elders are required to complete the paperwork for background checks to be done through local law enforcement, state and federal agencies. The individual that presently handles that is Cynthia Matt. Personal reference checks will also be done. Vacancy announcements specifically state that an employee is subject to a background investigation as a special condition of employment. And employees who are required or hired in a position that requires a background check will complete the paperwork prior to hire. I listed out the statistics that we provided for the 2021 annual report. We advertised 298 positions. We screened 1,257 applications. We conducted 621 interviews. Of those applications, 806 were CSKT enrolled members, 86 were first generation descendants of our tribe, 162 were members of other tribes, 203 were non-tribal members, and we had 587 female applicants and 670 male applicants. In fiscal year 2023, our budget request included additional funding for an HR position. This position was not funded in our fiscal year 2022 budget. Having this position will allow personnel to provide training that has been requested by the tribal council. I understand that's customer service training, supervisor training, and prevention of harassment and or bullying. And our budget request for this year also included additional funding for training.
One other, Renee, one other item that we brought up for training needs was board training. So
Board
very-
training?
Yes, yeah, board training.
And is that something that Bob Gochi provides?
I don't know who
You don't
provides it.
know? Okay.
I think the college just went through some board training,
Okay.
but a lot of the things that I've observed in my short duration here has been that some of the board members don't know what powers and duties they really have. Their authority and what they need to do. So as the extension of the tribal council. So a lot of them get managed pretty heavily by their executive officer, or whoever it might be, and probably excessively. So some board training would help with that, empower the boards to do their due diligence. The other thing related to boards, when you talked about background checks, I don't see that there's anything for vetting potential board members. And what I mean is there some conflict of interest that potential board member might have with being on that board? You know, that type of a review, not that they just simply are qualified, but you know, maybe they've had an aggressive action against that entity, or they're you know, they might have something else that could be lurking in the background that would make them a non-desirable selection by the council. So I don't know that that's been done in the past by personnel.
No, what we've done in the past is anytime someone applies for the board, we just schedule interviews with all the applicants with council to see, you know, who council wants to appoint. And that they're actually not covered by ordinance 69D, so.
I know.
Not that I'm trying to get rid of it, but.
Or maybe it's the training officer, they do a little bit of research. I don't know.
Mhm, yeah,
I think it's our responsibility to have that more of a information versus that's on the side. It's not like a direct interrogation between council and the person in the applicant. Go ahead, Rick.
Mr. Chair, actually, yesterday, Greg Spar and I had a meeting with, well, it doesn't really matter. Short version is we're working on receiving a couple proposals for board training, specifically kind of the things that you're talking about. Annual training that focus on the board members' role, the responsibility to the shareholder, what powers and duties they don't have. And then along with that, trying to get a system of recruitment, sort of a, not so much an advertisement, but a pre-vetted list of potential board members that meet the various needs of the organization. So I'm happy to go into that discussion and kind of what we're trying to get the groundwork laid on with you later.
Sounds good. Thank you, Rick.
and that's the end of my list.
Okay.
You guys think we covered everything? You want to add anything?
Could I ask a couple of questions? I'm going to backtrack a little bit on the insurance, employee insurance. You're providing that information. Is there a ranking, or is there a recommendation, or how does, because a lot of times when employees are new hires, they don't know who to go to, what insurance to get. So I don't know if there's a recommendation, or you say, oh yeah, we get a lot of tribal members that get this one. That's what you do?
When they, yeah, when I do orientation, they're provided with a list of the insurance companies. And then I do, I probably shouldn't, but I do recommend which ones everybody do go with. And then I provide them with a website where they can go review and compare all those plans. Yeah, so it's pretty much up to them to review and compare those plans and enroll in whatever one best fits them. Yeah, and the health insurance, they do have good websites too. They can go to those websites, they can chat with people, and they'll help them figure out what plan they should be enrolled in. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Have you talked to tribal health about which plans match best up with the services that the tribes provide?
I guess what I tell them is if they have a doctor now, they should go to the website and see if they're considered a network provider for them. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you, Chairman. Have you thought about, you know, there's once a year where people can change their coverage, inviting representatives from these insurance companies so people could talk to them, and because it's really hard when you just, you know, when you're starting a new job and you just get a packet of information to go through it all, plus start your new job and do everything else. I think it'd be easier if they could, if people could talk to someone about the benefits that each one offers. Some of them might offer dental or vision or something and some don't, I don't know, but if people could talk to someone in person about them in depth, because it's pretty overwhelming to go through that all by yourself and try to figure it out.
Yeah, they, the only one that ever works with us like that is the GIHA. Yeah. They send us packets. They do webinars, yeah, for open season. Yeah. And I don't think anybody's ever attended those either, those webinars. Yeah.
So we don't have specific people that will come in and meet with employees because it's all through the Federal Employees Health Benefits Program. So there's not really a standard representative for each one of those plans.
The long time ago, we had an employee newsletter, and actually, sometimes it was printed in the Charcusta. And so I bring this up because I mentioned it, I think last week or week before last, but I've had some elderly tribal members, which are actually younger than me, ask for more information because as personnel changes, you know, this person moves here or there, you know, there's different contacts. And so after a while, they tend not to know everybody or who's in a particular program or department. And they feel more comfortable if they have a little bit more information. They could read about that, like back in the day when this employee newsletter was produced. If that was in the Charcusta, they'd feel more intimate with the staff or know who to call. A lot of times people move around or they get promoted and people don't know that. I mean, we do an announcement on a new department head or something of that nature, but what they're talking about is a tiered down information basically from the bottom up that provides that information periodically. I don't know if that's something that's, you know, maybe it's a particular department once a month or something of that nature, but you're already providing a lot of information with the new hires and terminations or resignations. And that's good, but that kind of information to the general membership would be really beneficial for them to understand with that rather than just in-house intranet. But with more expansion of where those people lie and functions. I don't know if I'm making sense. Do you remember that, Renee, back a long time ago?
I do. Sharon Felsman was the one that done the employee newsletter. Yeah. Yeah, I recall that. So that's something you want us to think about. We'll have to meet as a staff. and-
Well, that was as
see
an
who-
aging population of tribal members. That's what they were kind of requesting. I mean, they're out of the workforce and they don't know people anymore. They've been removed. And so that was the way it was explained to me. So something of consideration. I think it does increase in providing service to the membership for information. Go ahead, Rick.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. You did, I think it was last week, maybe mentioned that to me, and it's something I put on our comms team agenda and asked them to actually consider the thing you just mentioned. What is the best way to get that information out and kind of tie it in with what we're trying to do on the website and stuff. So we're anticipating a light lift on personnel's side because of the information they already provide. So that's in the works, but it's as discussed, probably going to come from a different source into the Charcuster, maybe part of the website or social media or something. We don't know exactly how to make that work most effectively yet, but we have a different crew working on it.
All right, thank you. We want to know where Chanel's moving to. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to say, I used to read the newsletters. I actually liked those too. My other question is about longevity awards, because a number of tribal members have asked about making sure that they get their longevity awards. And my other question is about incentive awards. Is personnel still doing incentive awards? Can someone from a department nominate someone for an incentive award? But the longevity awards, I think, are really important, and the longevity recognition. And I think people assume that personnel is going to do that. They don't realize they have to request it. And some people feel really uncomfortable with that.
Mhm.
But at the same time, they still want to be recognized.
Yeah, you know, I've continually done that duty, trying to develop a process to notify me when someone's due for a longevity award. And I'm hoping that when we implement on base, that's going to be something that will, you know, trigger an alert on my end to say, well, so-and-so is due for 25 years, 30 years, 35 years, 40 years. And I do need to actually bring in the longevity award. We do have a couple of employees that have reached 50 years of service, and we don't have an award in place for 50 years. So I need to bring that in under separate, but we're working on that with on base to get to the point, because I do get quite a few employees. I'm due for this, I'm due for this. Okay, and I'll look it up, and you know, I have to go to the list and check, well, did they get all their awards? Did they get 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30? So but I'm doing the best I can to keep up. So, but with on base, I'm hoping it's gonna trigger me, you know, an alert will come up and I'll be able to be on top of those more. We used to do the employee awards at quarterly meetings. And the feedback I got from council at that time when we were doing those was it was taking up too much of the memberships, the constituents' time. So they wanted to have the employee awards on a separate day off council. And then I would invite all these people to come in to get their awards, and people wouldn't show up. So it made me feel like, well, council thinks I'm not doing my job because people aren't showing up, but I'm inviting supervisors, I'm inviting the employee, I'm inviting members of their family. So I know if it's something council wants to do in a public forum again, we can certainly do that. And then you'd also need to decide if you're going to recognize all the employees or just, you know, at one time we only did 25 years and above. And incentive awards, we do, I still get nominations for incentive awards and process those. The change that occurred with 69D was I no longer had to bring those to council. Someone for personnel could approve it. So we've gotten quite a few incentive awards and they've been processed.
Well, I think the in-person thing would be a good start, at least 25 and above. That would be returning something of, you know, appreciation for someone who's good, you know, given a life of service. I would consider a career of anything at 20 and above. Because most of the law enforcement officers can retire after 20 years of service. So I think 20 and above would be appropriate.
Okay.
Or whatever, increments of 5, something of that nature. That's me.
And that's another issue I'll bring into on employee awards, because we need to establish the 50-year award. We've
50
got
years?
3 people that have 50 years. That's a long time.
I was trying to avoid that. No, I'm not one of them. Not yet. Any other comments or questions for Renee and staff? You don't get to ask any, Martin.
I'm good, man. It was such a thorough, in person. I'm glad this is in person and not you guys crammed into a little room. That was just a super
We
spreader
tried.
event.
We
waiting to happen.
tried to sit in the conference room and do it, but I came down here, I thought I'm gonna have to start over. So I'm glad you told me where I could start.
I was on. I saw the whole thing.
Did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was great.
Anybody else? No, nothing? Thank you, Martin. Okay, go ahead, Jennifer.
You, Chairman. Are you in the process of making job applications available online so people could apply online and submit rather than having to do a paper copy?
Yes, we are through OnBase. We actually got our first application day before yesterday on OnBase, which was pretty exciting. And moving to paperless with OnBase is going to be, we're all excited about it. Getting the OPFs that are, Lisa Shorts was telling me that the scanner came in. So we're going to be able to get all those files converted electronically and be more efficient. So, yeah.
You ever have anybody ask you to help them file for federal employment, like at the irrigation project?
I haven't. Oh, I guess Melinda and Indian Preference helps them.
She does?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because that seems to be a challenge for the workforce down there, is just simply being able to make it through
Mm-hmm.
USA.gov, whatever the process is. It seems pretty like a wall for a lot of people.
Mm.
So I know the college did that service for a while. I don't know if they still do, but they did in the past. That seemed to be a challenge. I know, Rick, we've been hired, well, as you know, we've been hiring some tribal employees to work down there, but those folks would be better off if they were actually civil service employees working for the federal government instead of us. But they have a lot of challenges to be able to apply.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. You have someone that's familiar with it and someone offers it.
Melinda does. Yeah.
Linda does? Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, well, good job.
Keep up the good work.
Appreciate it. You can go back upstairs now. and
Okay, we can go back to our conference
Your
room.
room.
Okay, thank you. Have a good weekend.
You too. All right. John, you're up next. You got Claremont and James in tow, I see. All right.
I got Jim Claremont from our night crew and Dan James from our day crew with us today. I'll just give a brief overview and then each one of these guys will kind of go through their daily, monthly routine. Our mission is to keep these buildings up, running and updated, which is a challenge. Not only updated, but as far as preventive maintenance, we're working on preventive maintenance plans, which each area is a little bit different. I like the Head Starts, the ECS. Preventive maintenance for that it is tied directly to their funding sources, so they have certain codes they gotta go by. Just such as the detention center. The detention center, we just had a inspection with the BIA and OIG at the end of last month. Seemed to go pretty well. But once again, that preventive maintenance program is gonna have to be a little different than everybody else's. We are gonna need to get our tribal sanitarian on board and do his quarterly inspections for environmental health safety of all the people involved in each of the buildings. Currently, we have 89 buildings that we tend to. And there's, as I get in deeper, there's a few other buildings that are questionable as to whose they are, who takes care of them, who maintains them. We have 89 current, and the Pablo Bank building and the Ronan Clinic will be added on soon. 6 cemeteries that we directly take care of or aid in the upkeep of them. So we have 47 day and night crew people right now. And with the org chart reorganization, we added and moved positions. So we have carpenter positions and groundskeeper. So more specific to the changing needs of the tribe. Things changed quite a bit since COVID. I don't know why, but things have changed quite a bit. And Lisa has changed our org chart to help us meet them needs, which has been real helpful. We're also in charge of the pilot program with a greeter safety monitor person. And that will, there's 9 slots there for more employees. And another pilot project is appointing one of our maintenance workers to each of the culture committees, one up north and one down south. Seems to be working fairly well. There'll always be kinks to work out, but we haven't had no major complaints from either committee. And again, we're working on preventive maintenance plans, which is going to be big because within the next couple of years, we put in for a budget to really catch up on the HVAC systems and the roof systems, which they're overdue. Life expectancy on commercial ones are about 15 years, and I don't think we have any that are under that now. Even this building. This is one of the newer buildings, and it's getting up there in age. So our preventive maintenance plan, we're also working with IT to develop reoccurring work orders that come up automatically for each building, and that'll help us. That way the guys on certain day each month, they'll get hit with their work order for that building, whether it's filters or whatever it is. So that'll be a big help. And in the last 11 months, maintenance has processed over 1,300 work orders, some of which are emergencies and some of which are just normal day to day, and even some comical ones actually. This year, it seems like a large number of our work orders have been sewer plugged up sewers, whether it's usually between the building and the main line, which that says we're putting the wrong things down the lines, but we've had a couple collapsed lines, but for some reason we've had a large number of them. And some of our recent projects in the last year and a half or so is we've had the White House meth cleanup, Olson Senior Center meth cleanup, a re-roof of the Hot Springs Senior Center. We did the walk-in pass a few years ago in the 3 communities. Put a new roof on Neil Charlo building. The old complex remodel, which is just getting finished up. And the doors just got in last week, which was major thing. That doors have been. But the doors also took 9 months to get here. That's part of our supply and demand chain now that we're dealing with. We just put new AC in the IT server room, which is critical. We worked on the food sovereignty building out at Kicking Horse. They actually had a meeting out there today with 50-some people, supposedly. Drug task force is out at Kicking Horse also. We remodeled the old admin building for them. And so they can commingle with the mail room. Three Chiefs Curator room is also out at Kicking Horse. And since that has museum quality stuff, the fire suppression system, it has to be a clean agent, which is a gas, no water, which, and that ended up costing like 45,000, I think, just for that. The Dewar office, the water settlement, they're out there. We've redone several carpets, second circle, doors and windows. We needed to get them up to code as a lot of buildings. And senior center countertops, and all the senior centers are all brand new now. We do have some upcoming projects. We have some Head Start roofs, the carpet at the Arley Powwow Grounds, the Elmo Pavilion, which is, that's a big project. It's almost to the danger stage now, so that's why it has been blocked off. Engineers are working on it. They're finding out it's more difficult than they expected. They thought the roof line was supposed to go like that, but it's not. We're getting backup generator for the Arley Tribal Health Department, and I believe that's the last one we need as far as the tribal health for their vaccines and medicines. We're working on Polson Post Office where we had a accident with the wall and also the parking lot, which needs to be dug up and about a 30 by 30 area repoured. And the records management building, a remodel out there so that can be up and running. Some of the issues we've been dealing with historically, mold. I'm not an expert on mold, and this is where I believe we need to work with our tribal sanitarian, and because maintenance always gets a call when somebody suspects mold, whether it is mold or not. We get the call, and I get the feeling that we're supposed to eradicate it immediately, which we have to do tests. We have to send them off to the lab, and it takes time, but we don't know if that's really a maintenance issue. We know the cleanup is a maintenance issue, but depending on what it is, there are different ways to go about it and different people to clean it up. I think we need to get a process down, work with the sanitarian, and so we can get this process out to the programs so they know who to call first, how to go about deciding what it is, and then once again, how to clean it up. Staff turnover, I guess we all have that issue. Every program does. Another big issue we have is buildings. Whether they are ours or a maintenance issue or a lands issue. If they're, they have to be IDC. It has to be indirect cost. And to do that, it has to have two programs in it. Is that correct, Lisa?
Yeah, there should be 2 or more programs in a building for it to be IDC eligible.
And but there is some gray areas. We try to take care of the buildings at least to keep them up. I know we did, the Elmo Head Start. We put a new roof on it a few years ago because it was a good building, and it was empty. But it was a good building worth saving. But we've been back and forth with them. I mean, the caretaker's house in Elmo it's not covered by IDC, but who takes care of it? I mean, I think we need to draw some definite lines with some help from council. The powwow grounds are one kicking horse.
Let me back up one thing, Lisa. So if a program is paying IDC and they're the single occupant of the building, you're saying that they're not eligible for services.
They're eligible for services. Generally, when they're paying IDC, they're paying for accounting, personnel, things like that. They're getting the maintenance. The building, it's kind of it's almost a catch-22 in some cases because you might have a program in there, but the IDC that they're paying isn't comparable to help cover all of these expenses. And so everything's getting pulled into IDC and the expenses are definitely going to exceed that. So I think what John's trying to say is if this is going to be an IDC expense, we have to figure out how to either make that happen or we need to have a different pool of money that can help, because if we have to replace IDC with $10 million for, just to keep things running, that's going to significantly impact a lot of programs.
So you're saying our IDC rate is wrong?
I'm saying in order to keep up with what is needed, it definitely would have to be increased, or we need to be able to supplement that through some other funding source.
And what is I thought, don't we submit that cost for IDC, or how does that come up?
We do, but we've never had these kind of expenses. We're looking at a $10 million increase to just deal with HVACs and roofs in the next year. That's a first.
Mr. Chair, if I can, so the IDC rate, this is kind of a challenge across the board. And I think last time Joe Durgalo was up here, he talked about one of his priorities was moving to I can't remember the section. It's like 110 or 105, where essentially in this case, IHS would be leasing the building or paying us a lease cost instead of a maintenance cost through our compact. That one of the reasons that they're looking at that is because IDC is based on historical costs. And so next year, our IDC rate is going to see the calculation is going to be dependent upon this kind of big deferred maintenance bump that we're showing. And then the next year, if we don't have the same level, we'll end up with a spike and then it'll go back down. If we're on a very consistent path with maintenance, our IDC rate should, in theory, kind of catch up or, be equivalent, but we're not the only group that has deferred maintenance, and it's much easier to sort of build in those future costs, if you will. And if anybody couldn't see my air quotes around future costs into that lease payment, it's easier to do that than kind of go the IDC route. What that would mean is IDC would not include the conversation around facilities, and IDC would be significantly different. So it's a kind of a complicated process an issue, and Mr. Dolson, that is why renegotiating our base funding is, if we could do that, it would really help solve some of those issues.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, back to buildings. There was several more, Kicking Horse itself is an issue. Blue Bay, same thing. It's not just one building, or we're not just talking about just one building, pretty much just the area itself. I mean, it's got to be talked at as a whole and a whole solution to the whole thing. Otherwise, it could get run down and look like trash. And that's not nothing we want.
I
Power
assume
grounds.
you're talking about the Bison Range too.
Sure. And the power grounds, I mean, that's a big issue too. I mean, so we got a lot of ground to cover, but I think we're getting a good start on the direction we're headed. As far as the funding, and once we put a lot of money into these roofs and HVACs with the preventive maintenance program, I think we can get another 15, 20 years easily out of them. And hopefully more, but 15 or 20 would be nice.
So John, on the talking about the heating and cooling, is there new recommendations or costs associated with, like COVID prevention?
No, other than I think a lot of this stuff, cleaning the systems a little bit more, HEPA filters, which I mean, we went to anyway. That's, in buildings this big, that's unless you have isolation rooms, and then you're up into the really big dollars. But yeah, COVID threw a twist, and I don't know that all of it was. Jim can talk to you a little bit about what they did during COVID. It was crazy. Go ahead, I'll let you.
A lot of Clorox wipes. That's probably what ended up down the sewer lines, right?
Yeah,
A lot of them, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, during the COVID time, we did have a rough time. If there would be somebody in the office that had COVID, eventually they'd have to evacuate the building. We'd come in and we'd sanitize it, spray it, vacuum it, whatever needed to be done, wiped it down, everything. And that really took up a lot of time, plus trying to keep the building clean too, mopping. We come into a building, we'll assess the building, what needs to be done right away. You'll check your garbages, you check your bathrooms, you check your dispensers. And then you come in and say, okay, this is what I need to do first. They'll come in, do the bathrooms. That's everything in the bathroom. If you touch that, we got to clean it. You touch that, well, we got to clean that too. We do a lot of cleaning that I don't think really gets noticed, but you guys everybody takes it for granted that, this is still staying clean. They didn't know maintenance did it, but we had a really rough year during the COVID. We lost a lot of people. We had a high turnover this year. And bringing in these new employees, you have to retrain them. We almost had to take what we could get. If somebody applied, I would hire them. And so during that time, we have to train them. Train them how to strip and wax floors. We do that, and that takes up one building. It'll take you 2 weeks to strip and wax a floor, and that's with 2 people. And I have to take 2 people away from this town to do that. I do a lot of shuffling around, a lot with what I have, and we are struggling, but we do to get it done.
Just want to backtrack to the situation like John brought up about the mold. Because I'm familiar with the building in Polson, and I know you've been working in that building or responsible for that one. So you talk about like the basement that's not occupied by offices. You really don't go down there, do you?
Which one was that?
Or building on Main Street in Polson.
Yeah, we do.
You go down there.
We have supplies down there, yes.
Oh, just to get your
Yeah,
supplies.
nobody wants to wander around down there during night. It's a little spooky.
Yeah, that hole in the ground that's from Silence of the Lambs kind of sends you that way. So, but otherwise, you know, as far as looking for issues, you're really focusing on the places that the staff are occupying,
Yes,
not as storage area.
right,
Right, okay, that's what I wanted to make sure
you're right.
I understood that. Because I never saw anybody down there
Yeah,
in that basement. Question for new construction, John. I mean, are you our inspector for new construction?
Yes, me and Don Klein,
Is there anybody else that's trained up for that?
not as of yet, but we do have new positions for, in the building side, as that's gonna be a big need shortly. We're also, some carpenters looking to hire someone also within the reorganization. Just to help us do the small jobs that bidding them out and getting one bidder is not, it's not right. It's not good for us. And so,
Is there, and I know because you and Don, both instructors, and Don was actually one of those first graduates of PATCOR back in the day. So, you know, developing that workforce that you have control over that work for you that maybe do like carpentry jobs or those kinds of things seems pretty critical for the reasons you just said and just to get the work done. Is that do you forecast how you would train that or build that up or, you know, some type of succession plan upward into that?
well, now the college has brought their building trades back, so we'll be able to utilize that, I believe. I mean, that's a good avenue to use, go through. Get tribal members. It'll be great. I mean, when we were out at Job Corps, they also, you know, they dropped carpentry out there during the recession and, it's something that never goes away. But I mean, you know, people make them decisions based on money at critical times. I understand it, but it's also something that'll never go away and you'll always have a need for it. Same with plumbing, electricians, all that, all the trades.
If I can interject too, I did talk with John about when we do bring carpenters on to potentially have some mock-ups that they can train staff on, either in the mornings before they go out or in the evenings, just set some time aside for training for staff on hand.
All right. Go ahead, Ellie.
Question, so you mentioned SKC, the building trades program. Have you actually visited with them about maybe having some projects that their students could work on with whoever's instructing them there, maybe projects that aren't time sensitive or where they'd be in the way if they took a little bit longer to work on, but they could be in the training process completing some of the projects?
I haven't yet, but I've talked with Scott about the program and how's it going and just for future reference that for us and for him, you know, it's a good placement for him and it would definitely help us. But that's a good point to bring up. Yeah.
On some of your tasks, John, and I know you weren't here, but when the Arlie powwow was going to happen, and it seemed like we were behind on action items out there. Do you use a project timeline for scheduling? Do you have they have it done by this time? Or are you doing another alternative, or do you plan that way?
Yeah. And usually hopefully we get it done on plan A, but usually it involves a lot more later days, longer days, later nights, and that's what we did with Harley. You know, we ran into it where we rebid it, which go through the procurement policy takes a little longer. And we just weren't getting any interest. We didn't get any bids the second time. So, when we went in to rebid it, I started ordering material because I knew someone was gonna have to have that material. And if you didn't order it, then we wouldn't got it in time at all. So, we knew what we were looking at. So, the guys are on board with it, that we'd have to work some long days, and that's what we did.
So in facilities like that, you know, have a real limited duration of use, is it, you know, it's like a house, you gotta abandon it for a while and then come back and fire the damn thing up again, and might have some surprises. Would you make a recommendation that we occupy those grounds and use them more? Would that help with maintenance?
Yeah, it sure would. Definitely. It's just like a house. If you leave a house empty for 6 months, you do have issues. You have the smell issues, you have everything. If you're operating it, it's 10 times better. Your seals on your toilets, all your plumbing, to your well house, everything. You usually have to kickstart it, and there's always something you have to fix.
I noticed that with Blue Bay running that for so many years. Yes, that's why I bring it up. You know, so somebody, I guess if it can't be open in the wintertime, so be it. You're gonna end up with some of that. But if it can be occupied for as long as possible, I think in my opinion, it lessens some of those, let's say, difficulties in getting something done quickly or you didn't forecast.
And that's what we've done with Ravalli Lookout Centers. We kept them open as long as possible, and we start working on them early, which is and there's always issues with them, but we try to keep them open longer. I know, just talking to the people that pull in there, they're glad it's there, and they're glad it's open.
I'm gonna tell you, I was really happy it was open yesterday. I almost drove right up to the door. Damn rocks were in my way. Go ahead, Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, John, is AJ still the only person over there you have working on your HVAC?
Yes.
Is there a possibility you could get somebody hired to help him out?
Yes, we are.
Because, you know, when I was working down in, St. Ignatius down there, he was kind of hard to get a hold of because he's always busy out running around here and there, you know, to, do separate certain jobs. And this summer, we had a call from nerds up there. They were really sweating out most of their whatever, you know, so hot up there in that building. They just couldn't hardly stand it with all the fans and everything else they had going up there. They just couldn't keep it cool at all. And in wintertime, they said it gets colder than hell in that building too, you know, so I don't know if they need a whole new HVAC system in there, or are they gonna have what they're gonna have to do to get things, you know, operating like it should, you know, so I know AJ has a hell of a pile on his plate, you know, with just him keeping up with different things like that, you know. I'm glad he trained me down there about tribal health, because I didn't have to call him a lot, because I could pretty much get those units back online without him having to come down, you know. But it just, you know, he's always on the go, you know. I mean, he's always on the go for this and that, changing filters and everything else, you know. So he's a busy man, you know. And I just thought, well, if there's any possibility of getting others hired to help him out on that, with that type of work.
Yeah, we're working on that and we also picked up another vendor, technicians to work on our HVACs too, that have helped us out tremendously this summer. Plus getting the new HVAC systems, we've, like Lisa pointed out, we put in a lot of, for a lot of money to redo the roofs and HVAC. So, hopefully soon, all these ones that are real bad will be, hopefully they'll all be new by then. And then we can go down to windows and doors and, continue on through the buildings.
Anything else from council? Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, John, when you guys do, looking at maintenance down there at the Orly Power Grounds, I was down there during the Hoop Fest and their basketball somehow hit one of them fluorescent light frames and the light fell out and hit a kid right on top of the head. So I was thinking maybe some kind of, cover for those because there's two of them that got knocked out. And, if they're throwing the basketballs or whatever they're doing, they're gonna fall out of there. Yeah, that kid got hit on the head and he never complained about it, but it busted on his head. And then also when you, are you gonna do that carpet this year?
Yeah,
Okay, and then,
yep, we're working on the
have you
contract.
pulled it up yet?
What's
Have you
that?
pulled any of it up yet?
No, we haven't.
I was just kind of wondering what that underneath looked like, because there's a lot of traffic with cars, rigs going through there for the past few years. But, yeah, I'm really concerned about those lights and get something on a cover on them.
And we were gonna change them out to LEDs
Okay.
anyway, so.
Hey, Jimmy, that sounds like a old Arlesian trick there against the visiting team. Anything else, John?
No, that's it.
Any other questions from council? Comments? Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
Have you done a post powwow walkthrough with either of the committees to kind of make sure that, things are identified that didn't work or whatever?
No, I haven't. I haven't, none of the committee members have contacted me, but, Lisa did point that out, that we need to do that.
Yeah, go ahead, Big.
Thank you, Martin, for bringing that up. That when it rained up there during the powwow, those concession stands leaked really bad. And it was dripping right down on those breaker boxes. And some of the guys had to put some plastic over them from keeping them from tripping, but it was dangerous. I mean, with that thing just pouring down and, inside there, and out that water coming right in on those breaker boxes down there, they were pretty jumpy about everything down there with all that rain coming down.
There's just one breaker box for the concession stands. Is
Yeah.
that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you, Chairman. One question that I have is, how many of our buildings have water fountains where you could fill up a water bottle? Because we've talked about, de-incentivizing the use of single-use plastics. And so how many of our buildings have water fountains where you could fill up a water bottle?
Not sure. I know Kermit was, before COVID, Kermit was trying to lean that way to get away from the 5-gallon water fountains. Personally, I don't, I would lean towards the 5-gallon water fountains instead of the ones in the wall, because them filters are like $180 a piece for them. I mean, and they say the big claim and the big push during COVID is they're touchless. Well, they're not. If you just get a drink of water, you still gotta push the button. And it was a big sale. They cost like $1,200-1,400 a piece. And, you know, the filters, like I say, they're $175-180 a piece. It's, and I don't see nothing wrong with the regular stand-up, you know, water units. But, I mean, if it's a consensus to go with the water fountains, I'm okay with that too.
I think actually Culligan provides the wall ones.
Yeah.
Also, so without, it's their cost then for if there's a filter or not, but I don't know if there is. I think they just have a water bottle. It's,
Yeah, just a water bottle.
but it's a different way to fill it.
Hmm.
I think that's what they use at the Bison Ranch.
Hmm.
So it may not be a added cost to provide that. I don't know, just other than buying the different way you dispense the water out of the bottle.
Right.
That's what you're talking about, basically. Any other comments, questions? I know I have something for Dan. I don't know. I'm gonna think about it.
Just kidding.
Anything else? Going once, going twice? All right, gentlemen. Jim, John, Dan, thank you for coming in.
In about 4 months, we can redo this orientation at we start at 3 a.m. out here, if you guys would like to join.
During his work schedule. Do you pay differential for that early shift? Okay. Way to be cheap. Yes. Thanks, John. Thanks, Lisa. I think that's our agenda, other than speaking with Rick for a while afterwards. Okay, we will,
Mr. Chair, can I
Yeah.
slip in one thing?
Sure, you
I
can.
promise it's quick.
go ahead, Ellie.
Martin and I got a message from Marie at Three Chiefs today. Glacier County Tourism is interested in seeing the B-roll of footage from a shoot that they did last July. It sounds like it's a part of the initial agreement that we approved, that we allow them to use the B-roll for Glacier County Tourism, but they're wanting to make sure that council's aware of that we're gonna allow them to look at a B-roll. Dan Decker from legal did review the original contract, didn't see any issues with it, so Marie just wanted to have Martin or I run it through us one more time to see if there were any concerns.
Council have any concerns? I don't know enough about it. so-
The original video, it says they taped visitors in the museum and the gift shop, and then they videotaped dancers and drummers in the community center. It was used on Brand USA about traveling our area. If there's any other footage that Glacier County Tourism might be able to use for.
Mr. Chair, I believe that we approved the original usage of the footage, so this is kind of making double sure that we can use it.
Yeah, I'd stay with the original intent. It's already been used in Glacier Country Tourism promotion, and it was one of the purposes, so. Seems fine with me. It's not a change of use or change of activity. It's just an extension of the product. Council okay with that? Okay. Sounds good. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned and